G'day YouTubers. Weather and work haven't combined to allow me to get out on the water for a couple of weeks now, and here's the weekend again and it's still not going to happen. I had 2 days of relatively bad weather and one day where there's a small window, admittedly, but from the time I leave home to the time I get out to a fishing spot is over 2 hours, so making that trip another 2 hours home for 2 hours fishing just doesn't make sense. I need to have pretty much a whole day out fishing to make it worthwhile for that length of travel. So anyway, I thought I'd do this video to give you a bit of an insight into the southern part of Moreton Bay. Anyone that spends a lot of time in that area will probably know most, if not all, of what I've got to say in this video, but anyone who's new to that area might find something of interest. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, it's been many years since I was down there, but I was down there quite a bit when I had the bigger boat and the weather was no good up in the northern end. It was a good place to shelter, and that's what I want to talk about, sheltering down in the southern end of the bay, because it's never been real good to me for fishing. I know there's some fishing spots there and I have caught a couple of fish down there, but it hasn't treated me as well as the northern end of the bay, which is why I generally fish the northern end of the bay. But if you want to get out on the water and it's a bit windy, southern end is the place to go, and who knows, you might have better luck than I do at fishing down that end of the bay. I know a lot of blokes who actually go over to the Pin and catch flathead and that, and that's about the only area of the southern bay where I have actually caught fish, is around the Pin area. On the other hand, if you're into mud crabs, can't go past the southern end of the bay, it is the best place for catching mud crabs, and I have done well at that down there. Now, I apologise for the long introduction, but just a couple more things before I start. Some fascinating history of the bay, at least I find it fascinating, and everyone knows that Captain Cook sailed up the coast in 1770. He spotted the bay through the South Passage Bar, but he didn't stop in, he just kept going. It wasn't until 1799 that Matthew Flinders first entered the bay. He came around the top end of Moreton, went over to Bribie. Skirmish Point was named for a little skirmish he had when the natives decided they really wanted to keep his hat and he didn't want to part with it. And then he sailed on down as far south as Mudlow Island. It wasn't until 25 years later, if memory serves, that Logan discovered the Logan River. It just puts it into perspective how easy we have it these days. You send up a drone and have a look around and you pretty much know what the lay of the land is. But in those days, it took all those years just to figure out how big Moreton Bay was. Incredible. Anyway, let's look at the southern part of it. And the southern part of it, I count as starting at Mudlow Island and going down to what I consider sort of the start of the Gold Coast around the Coomera River area down south of the Coomera, I figure as the Gold Coast. So let's have a look at some of the features in the bay there and some of the spots that are good for anchoring up out of the wind. And I will mention a couple of spots that I have heard are decent for fishing. There's only one around the Pin area that I have actually done any good at, but your mileage may vary. I'll start off down here on South Stradbroke Island, where there's a little canal estate that lay abandoned for an awful long time. A few of us used to go in there and anchor occasionally. It was a nice, really smooth anchorage, and while it was abandoned and no work was being done and no one was living there, it didn't do any harm. But as you can see now from aerial shots and Google Earth, it is built up and I wouldn't go anchoring in there now. But it is tidal waters and you are entitled to fish there, so if you're into fishing around the pontoons and that, it's probably worth giving it a shot there. I've never tried it myself, I've never been in there since it's been built on. But I do see a lot of videos on YouTube where people go in and fish the pontoons, so there you go, that one might be worth a try. A little bit further north along South Stradbroke Island there's a nice beach that has a track that goes right across the island to the surf side. Years ago we'd anchor our boat out there, wade into shore, walk across to the surf beach, have a bit of a swim in the surf beach, come back and go back to the boat. You had to watch the tide because the bottom shelves off slowly and it's very muddy. You end up sinking down to your knees in mud. You needed to come in at half tide and leave at half tide was what I tried to do. It usually meant the boat was grounded at low tide, and I tried to avoid going back out to the boat at that time because of the mud, but come half water it was enough to float the boat out again. I'll just say that most of the time I went over there in those days I had a small tinny, so it didn't matter too much that it was going aground. The other thing I've mentioned is people didn't seem to steal the same as in those days. So If you decide to leave your boat there while you go across to swim in the surf, just bear that in mind and do so at your own risk. A little bit further north again is Tipless Tavern. Now, I've never called in on that one. I don't know what the beach is like there to put your boat in, but I do see a lot of boats pulled in there, so it can't be all that bad. And never having called there, I don't know what's on offer, but being a tavern, I imagine they have counter lunches, so if you're going past and you fancy a meal, you could pull in and give it a try. A little bit further north again is the famous Jumping Pin Bar. There's a fair bit to do around the pin area. There's of course the bedroom, or what used to be called the bedroom there, which is a very small anchorage that was quite popular. I don't pretend to know why it was popular, because the first boat there got a good anchorage and everyone else just had to fit in as best they could because it was a very small area. And I think it was called the bedroom because most people that went there left their boat there, went across to the surf side for the day and came back to sleep on their boat. So the bedroom's not somewhere I'd recommend. I did stay there a couple of times, but yeah, I was quite unimpressed with it really. And just focusing on the pin area for a little bit more, the bar's quite dangerous and I've only ever been out that bar a few times, but inside the pin area is some quite good fishing. I can't say I've ever caught any more than flathead, whiting and tailor there, but I do quite enjoy those fish, so I'm not disappointed with them at all. I have heard other people catching jews and other fish there, so well worth giving it a fish. I'll just mark a few of the areas that I know in the past used to deliver the goods, along with a couple that I've heard are worth a try. Now, I haven't actually fished around the pin for a good few years, so some of these marks might not be as accurate as they used to be. The sandbars change all the time, but these next three marks used to place you in the sort of entrance to the pin bar, for want of a better term. I would not recommend them for anyone who's not experienced, because there can be a really strong current running there. You need to have an engine that you can rely on to start every single time, and a little bit of experience is preferable to fish those areas. So there's your warning, make of it what you will. And let's have a look at the actual marks. The area that I normally launch from when I'm going to the pin is Jacob's Well. It's got a real nice ramp there. The Volunteer Marine Rescue at Jacob's Well is situated right beside it. If you talk to them nicely on the radio, they'll even let you pull into their pontoon for a short period. All in all, it's a really good ramp. Seems to be plenty of parking, at least all the times I've been there, there's been plenty of parking. I imagine it could get busy, but I've just never struck it that way. Heading north from Jacob's Well, there's another boat ramp at Horizon Shores that you can launch from. Now, I've never launched from that ramp. I think I may have visited Horizon Shores once, many years ago when it first opened, but I don't remember much about it. I don't even remember if they had a boat ramp at that stage. I have heard that there's secure parking there if you want to go out overnight, but best to investigate that for yourselves just to make sure. As I said, never used it. The only thing I do know about it is the vessels from VMR Jacob's Well. You often hear them calling on the radio that they're going into Horizon Shores to refuel. So obviously there's fuel available on the water there. Further north again, the Stiglitz. That's at Cabbage Tree Point. And that's quite a good ramp, but it gets very, very busy. In the last couple of years, I've launched there a couple of times on the weekend, and both times I've had to walk about half a kilometre back from where I could park the car to the ramp. And again, when I went to get the car to get the boat out of the water. It's pretty good during the week. I've always been able to park the car in the car park during the week. I like to get down there fairly early, but on the weekend, it doesn't seem to matter how early you get there, you're just not going to get in that car park. Other than that, a really good ramp, nice beach area to put the boat up on. Do like it, but just busy on the weekends. A little bit further north, there's the mouth of the Logan River. The entrance to that gets really shallow at low tide, so just use a little bit of caution. I often have to tip the motor up a little bit because you leave it down, you start to churn mud on a really low tide. Never done real good fishing in the Logan River. Matter of fact, I can't remember catching a fish in the Logan River. May have done, just can't remember it. So it certainly wasn't a noteworthy fish. However, it is great for mud crabs. I do catch quite a few mud crabs in there during the seasons. I still try to get down there once or twice a year, get a feed of mud crabs. It's a bit of a run in the boat now, and the boat's a little bit big for working the mouth of the river, but it's still worth the trip. I've marked a few spots where you can look for prawns and mud crabs. I haven't given the GPS coordinates for them because you're in the river mouth. Just look at the map and have a look around at the general area. You'll get the idea roughly where you need to be. There's no magic formula involved in catching mud crabs. The prawns you got to sound around for anyway, so start somewhere near the mark and just go around a bit and see if you can find them on the sounder. Again, both in season. Now, I didn't think I was a very talkative person, but the video's already over 10.5 minutes and I haven't touched upon most of the items that I wanted to talk about down the southern end of the bay. I don't like to do videos that are too long, so what I'm going to do is split this up into several videos and I'll try and post one every couple of weeks. There's an awful lot of ground to cover down there, an awful lot of things to do, and even the things that I had intended to talk about barely scratch the surface of what there is down there. So anyway, call it quits at this point. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you learned something about the southern end of the bay out of it. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can go to my YouTube channel. Until next time, good fishing.